Absolutely. I've read the book in full, it's excellent, which is part of why we're giving it away. We've had some other authors on, and we try to make sure we support. I know that through reading your work and hearing you speak, that you believe very strongly in some of the impacts of the things that we observe on money at an early age. I know that you reference in your work the work of Brad Klontz. In actuality, he was the very first guest we ever had on this podcast. I would say from reading your work, you take it a step further in having your own definition of financial trauma and the way you focus on how the same event can impact two different people differently. So, can you share your definition of financial trauma?
Yeah, so financial trauma is any instance observed or experienced that has a negative impact on the way someone views, interacts with, or believes about money.
So it's important to say that that's not like that's your definition, right?
That
so
is
like,
the Rahkim original, yes.
yeah, I'm just making sure you credit yourself where it's due. So I bring that up because you talk about the eviction notice, and in your book and in some of your talks, you also reference the fact that while all this was going on, you have siblings, but your siblings were experiencing a very different reality. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I think, it's funny, when I was writing the book, I was thinking of a particular person, right? And as I think most authors do, right? There's an avatar, and that avatar was somebody who is first generation, high income earner. Maybe they are a first generation college graduate. And a lot of times in the writing of this book, I was envisioning a man or a male figure because that is the experience that I can relate to, right? After the book was written, and I started to analyze and pull back the layers of who am I going to market this book to, I realized that the more captive audience would be a population of women. And so as I've been kind of doing research around what are the things that women are engaging with on social media, what are the topics that matter to them, one of the things that struck out to me very strongly is the oldest daughter, or this conversation around the oldest daughter, and how in many instances she is responsible essentially for being like a second mom. And I thought that was a really interesting phenomenon because although I'm the oldest son, a lot of parallels can be drawn between what my experience was in stepping up to fill, the role of man of the house when it came to my younger siblings. Interesting piece of nuance here to share is my immediate younger brother is, I think he's 16 months younger than I am. So we're like, couldn't be closer, almost twins, right? And so there was a dynamic present of my brother kind of looking at me like, who are you to like tell me what to do or to guide me, to direct me? You're just a couple months older than I am. I mean, he was very rebellious in that time period, whereas I was very much walking the line. Like, let's not add on to the burden that mom is dealing with. Let's not add on to the stress that she's dealing with. And I was very sensitive to that during that time period. But answering your question, my brother had, in his rebellion, and for whatever other reasons existed, decided that he wanted to live primarily or spend most of his time with my father. And because I had internalized the breakup between my parents as an attack on my mother, I had chosen a very strongly opposite stance. And so this created kind of a little bit of tension. And when I say a little bit, I'm being facetious. It created a lot of tension between my dad and I, but also created tension between my brother and I. And what was my brother's reality when it came to money, when it came to the household finances, when it came to how I was internalizing the struggle financially was not the same, because his experience at my dad's house was a little bit more positive. And this is not to say that my dad was rich or wealthy in any way, substantially greater than was the case with my mom. But there was just a day and night experience there. And for many years, up until really me sitting down to write this book, I had believed or adopted this idea that we were all in the house together, that I was cooking and cleaning and taking care of my brother and my sister in the way that was expected of me and trying to be a good son, and that they were all feeling the pain or observing the pain financially in the same way that I was, until we sat down and had a conversation. Certainly I didn't want to write down some half-truths or anything that was not real. And so I went and I talk to my brother and I talked to my dad as I was writing the book, and I'm like, hey, let's talk about this. Like, can we clear this up? Can we get on the same page? And my brother's like, bro, like, I know that that's what was going on, but that wasn't my experience. And then even talking to my dad, where significant healing has taken place in the relationship that he and I have, for us to be able to look at a painful experience in everybody's life, right? His life, my mom's life, my life, and to be real with each other as men and say, okay, like, let's talk about it. Like, what happened? My dad said something that was really striking to me. He goes, everything that you went through in that moment was, a choice, right? Like, you chose to stay with your mom. You didn't have to go through that. You didn't have to experience that. You could have come with me. And I was like, oof. I had to like eat that for a minute, because I was like, first of all, this is years ago, right? more than 15 years ago, over, maybe close to 20 years ago. And I've been holding on to a lot of this pain related to my experience, related to money, allowing these experiences to define my approach to money and how I go after things. And you're telling me that what it is that I went through was a choice? My dad, in his older age, has a lot of wisdom, and I think he kind of picked up on that, and he immediately followed up the statement with, maybe you had to go through what it is that you had to go through so that you can do the work that you're doing to prevent other people from going through what you went through, or so that you could give context to other people who don't have a choice. And I'm like, nice cleanup, Dad, right?